So, more evidence that Dr. Umar Johnson is an idiot? Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense, Logic, and Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, Dr. Umar Johnson gets around, he does a lot of interviews, and he was actually on the Highly Initiated show. And the first time I ever heard of him was the debate between Anton Daniels and Yada. Well, they interviewed Dr. Umar Johnson, and he had a very lengthy interview. I believe it was like 2.5 hours long. And one thing you can expect with Dr. Umar Johnson when he gives interviews is a whole bunch of nonsense. Now, and with this interview, he just came right out with the BS, right? They asked him, well, what does he think about what caused the downfall, the economic downfall of the black community?
Man, when I turn on, my computer and I look on social media or just see the conversations that's being had, it seems like it's truly a great divide between black men and women today.
True.
Especially in the space of love and relationships.
Correct.
It just seems like we don't have a ton of trust among one another. Everybody is very cynical about long-term relationships. And this is, I would call it a major crisis right now in our community.
I would agree with that.
We already know we have an economic crisis in the community, but now we see that this family and this relational crisis that we have that's rising. Which one would you say is greater right now as far as an issue or potential issue for the future of our relationships and our family?
I would say that they're related. If we look at this in its proper context, we go back and we see that the rise of the single black mother-led household doesn't begin until the 70s. Up until then, most of our homes had a mother and a father. So slavery didn't destroy the black family. We stayed married through slavery. I know my ancestors in particular, they kept the family together through slavery. So it wasn't slavery that did it. It was the economic disintegration of the black community. So after they assassinated Dr. King, the US government decided upon a policy to destroy the black man's ability to fund any future civil rights efforts. So they came into the inner cities and they took out all the factory jobs, stripped the black man of his ability to earn. Remember, up until the 70s, they were not pushing go to college in order to be a success. You can live a decent life working in any of the major inner cities as a laborer. So they took that out. Then they went into the high schools and stripped the high schools of the industrial building training programs. So carpentry, auto mechanic, welding, roofing, electric, plumbing, they took all that out. Those was the skills that paid the bills. In essence, what they did was they made the black man economically irrelevant to the black woman. I want to say that one more time. The 70s was the beginning of the process of making the black man economically irrelevant to the black woman. A man's primary responsibility is to protect and to provide. We can protect, but the providing is the issue. Now,
okay, first off, before I dive into this, unpack this, as the cool kids say, let me first say that when we talk about the black community, of course, we always talk about American blacks. We're not talking about black people who, of other cultures from Africa or Jamaica, Haiti. We talking about blacks born here. Of course, they say FBAs, but I don't call them FBAs because none of them founded anything. They didn't found America. But when it comes down to black Americans, the understanding there are two subcultures. You have the traditional black community, and of course the traditional black community is a result of, as he said, a time when blacks, when we had families, husband and wives were raising children. We had a high rate of children being born within the confines of a marriage and out of wedlock birth rates. And we also have the ghetto culture, which is another part of black culture. And when you hear people say the black community, oftentimes they're talking about the ghetto black community. Now, he basically, again, now to get into address what he said, he talks about how one of the reasons why the black community is in the shape it is, or the economic reason why, is because they took the trades and curriculum out of the schools, right? And they got rid of the manufacturing jobs in America. They left and went overseas, mostly to China. And I would agree 100% with that. But here's the problem with that. The first problem with this is that they did that for everybody. Okay, they took the curriculum from that same curriculum out of schools for black kids. They did the same thing for white kids, all kids. That the trades, teaching boys trades in high school was something that was taken out of curriculum altogether across America, no thanks to the Department of Education, which is one of the reasons why conservatives and people on the right want to get rid of it. But this happened to everybody. So wouldn't all people be in the situation and shape? It was just simply they took the trades out. Wouldn't the white community also be in that shape? Or wouldn't they also be a sub community of the white, or a sub community of white people, of ghetto whites? The truth of the matter is that white people, once this happened, they reinvented themselves, and most basically became tech and went into tech because they had to do something else because the manufacturing was gone. Now, the reason why blacks didn't reinvent themselves is the second reason why I have a problem with what he says. And that's pretty much primarily of the black or the ghetto black culture, because the traditional black culture is fine. We don't see issues with the traditional black community. It's with the ghetto black community, which we often point to when we say the black community. Now, the ghetto black community is something that's recently new, and as he said, again, it started happening in the 70s when we started to see the outer red light birth rates go up. And the reason why, as I said this before, is that black women choose to, because of the turbulent 60s, third wave feminism, black women, third wave feminism was a movement pretty much about basically sexual liberation was part of it, and black females who followed that sexual liberation and we're not here to be sexually liberated. Now, prior to that, we had a thing called shame that kept women in check, but that shame was eroded by the third wave feminism, and it didn't have as much checking power over the women, so women did what they wanted to do. These same women who basically were shamed away and basically steered away from dealing with the pookies and raries of their time. Well, pookies and raries have always existed, but they were shamed away from dealing with the pookies and raries of their time. Well, that shame, they didn't do it anymore, but those men, those guys hanging on the corner with the swag have always existed. Women have always been attracted to those men, but like I said, society should shame them away from that, because what was the outcome? And typically, women would be single mothers. Well, these women ran after these pookies and raries following third wave feminism, and as a result, they became single mothers. And the government came along then with the Great Society and said, well, no problem, we'll take care of you, we'll give you provisions. They gave them free food, free housing, everything. These women had to be responsible for anything. Again, they didn't have to be responsible for nothing. The more kids they had, the more provisions they got. And then, and after, 4 years later, in comes the second wave of women, black women doing the same thing. Then maybe 3 or 4 years later, here comes the third wave of black women doing this. And suddenly, then you got these women producing children, daughters who also would be part of future waves. And the result of this, we had a bunch of females clustered in housing projects with a bunch of children, no men around, a recipe for disaster. And that right there is the origin of the hood. Everything that we know is the hood is born out of that. Now, since these people had no responsibility, they don't have to worry about reinventing themselves because the manufacturing job is gone. This is why the black community, or the ghetto black community, is in the shape it is, not because they took curriculum out of schools and because they shipped the manufacturing jobs overseas. No, because you had a culture of no need for accountability, no need to have to be responsible for anything. So again, Dr. Umar Johnson is absolutely flat out wrong here. Once again, what he explained happened to America in general, all Americans it happened to. So if only the black culture had the outcomes, then obviously it must be something else. And again, it was a lack of the accountability and the lack of having to be responsible for themselves. Now, this is one, like I say, one of numerous things that Dr. Umar Johnson says that just totally idiotic. And again, like I said, this was the first question that he was asked in this 2.5 hour the interview. I didn't even go into the rest of it because I heard this. I'm like, my God. Anyway, like I said, Dr. Umar Johnson is an idiot. I stand on that, the fact that he's an idiot, and I provide the proof that he's an idiot. And he just blurted out a whole bunch of nonsense and then said it with confidence as if he's making sense. But then you have blacks who believe him. Regardless, like I said, he's wrong here, and I provide the evidence to prove that he's wrong. And as I always say, that's my 2 cents on this. You think I'm wrong, prove me wrong. But anyways, always, until next time.